let's go back to what you said about the engage early, monitor legislation, and collaborate, the 3 steps that are very important to maximize government support for agri-food tech. Would you immediately give us an example that would have come out of these 3 points working well?
An example of collaboration working well?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the system that I know best for agriculture and farming is the United Kingdom. And it's just when we were looking at rewilding a valley called, actually I've forgotten the name of the valley, but it was something like Windermere or Borrowdale. There's a big valley we wanted to rewild with wolves and buffalo and all sorts of things to put it back to its natural state of affairs. And we were working with Natural England, the National Trust, the Environment Agency, the Forestry Commission, the Farmers Union, the Rangers, in every meeting, every single meeting. If someone was missing, it wasn't going to be a very good meeting. That was a good example.
Maybe this is how we could start off by everybody giving an example, successful examples of effective collaborations between businesses and governments, for instance, in the agri-food sector, and maybe a more general comment on your take on how and why and whether it is an issue, government engagement. Where are we in terms of understanding the landscape of selling to governments? Yekaterina, let's start with you.
Let's do that. Thank you, Živile. So, well, I was actually very much expecting this question. You're always about examples. That's why I love about you very much. So I asked my colleague, actually, I'm going on stage with Živile, and she's going to ask for those examples. Would you help me? Do we have any success story in Lithuania? And they reminded me of the success story of our startup Supergarden. So the idea of Laura, I'm not sure if she's in the audience, I would love really to shake her hand very much today, had an idea over her breakfast to feed her children with healthy snacks, and she ended up signing a contract with NASA, and now our food, Lithuanian food, is going to space. How cool is that? So we are very proud. There is the agreement with military followed. So soldiers are going to be motivated by these healthy snacks too. That's, I think, good examples. Because they were not chasing the government, ideas or priorities or strategies. They just developed a good idea. They found the market fit, and then government followed. So I love this other way around.
If we have good examples working, is there really an issue, with government involvement? Mr. Beers, what would you say?
Yeah, in my experience, what we see is that, in the policy arena, we're talking about global terms, global words, sustainability, innovation. And what I learned is when we had a couple of projects brought together, so we had 60 use cases in one room, use cases really with companies, and we invited also the policymakers. And then they saw, hey, this is what innovation is about. And it's also the different forms of innovation. So for me, it's also very important, if you want to collaborate with and have good relations with the government, to inform them, to let them know what's going on in the field, what's going on the working floor. And I think that's something, and I'm coming from the Netherlands, and the first part of my career I just worked in the Netherlands, and we have only one university on agriculture. And so people from the ministry and people from research and people in the business, they all have the same education, the same vocabulary, so to say, the same mission in life, I would say. And that also helps, but I have to say that this is now changing quite drastically, because in the ministry they want to get rid of the silos. So we get people from other sectors in the ministry now.
So the one university doing agriculture, is that enough in your view for the whole country?
Sorry, what?
The one university concentrating on agriculture.
There's a good thing and there's a bad thing. And the good thing is that you have a coherent community around innovation in agri-food. The other side is that you also have, let's say, a silo. So you get, you have to be afraid of, you have to manage that you also look at other sectors, what's going on there. And that's sometimes that we forget when you are too close to each other.
Rokas, as a policy manager at business at OECD, what you do is oversee policy activities in the area of food and agriculture. What is your view on this government involvement problem?
First of all, when we're talking about the case studies, like were just mentioned, one of the key things that we do at Business at OECD is how do we present these case studies to the OECD and governments. And the scalability here is at key, I would say, through participation in OECD meetings, working parties, committee meetings, and etc. This is where the private sector can come and speak directly to OECD and governments about the real life problems, the issues that the private sector, the farmers are facing on the field, and what kind of enabling regulatory environment from governments would be helpful. And governments there listen because the OECD is a really unique place. It's very easy for consensus. It's all market-based democracies, and there's very rarely disagreement in the room. This is why for the private sector to engage and to provide user case studies on what works, what doesn't, it's a perfect area. And when we're looking to scale that even further, we at Business at OECD, we're a network partner of B20, which is the official business voice to the G20 meeting. And just last month, we were in Sao Paulo organizing a side event under the same campaign, Field of the Future, where we spoke with the OECD to governments addressing the B20, which later on made into the recommendations of the B20 to the G20, where we talk exactly about the things where we talk here. So from our side, it's very important not only to be reactive in terms when we communicate with governments, not only when we see new policies coming out, say what we like about them or what we don't, but forums like these, participation in B20, in global fora, in engaging with international organizations, that is really the key to make sure that we are proactive and we tell the government's partners, stakeholders, what works and what doesn't ahead of the curve.
So basically what you're trying to say is that it's not the government that should be initiating the dialogue, but the other stakeholders.
It's a dialogue issue, because when we look also even at the farmers at the small scale and smallholder farmers, there are a lot of issues that they might be facing, but there are also a lot of good examples where they are adapting innovation, where they're using new technologies, but it's the scalability issue. I mean, how do we apply that a little bit more broadly? And here we need infrastructure, we need involvement from the government. So collaboration and partnerships is a must here, not only a key, I would say.
Thank you. Andrus, you have already been praised by Mr. Janulevich in the first panel. Kauno Grūdai, which is the company that belongs to Akola Group, part of Akola Group, has officially opened its new 32 million instant food factory in Lithuania, in this city, which is probably the 7th largest city of Lithuania, Alytus. This is, me setting the stage for everybody who doesn't necessarily know Kauno Grūdai. 300 new jobs, 7,400 square meters of production space, and you claim that this investment reinforces Lithuania's role as a key player in the global instant food market with a focus on sustainability and innovation. What was the government engagement there?
Almost none. Almost none, with all respect, but sometimes, businesses do business without any help from government, which is good. Of course. Which is I personally, myself, I think it should be like that, So yes, we opened that plant. We are trying to be, we have the goal to be the not global leader, but in Europe. In Europe, which is also a good goal in that product category. So yes, and coming back, Živile, to the question as an example of cooperation between governments and businesses, colleagues were telling more specific. I would tell more generally. I would say that as far as our group has also farming, we are farmers as well. So we farm 20,000 hectares in Lithuania. We grow grains and milk cows. I would say that cooperation is very, very good on the ground. So those government guys who are working in payment agencies, who are overlooking the fields, checking the farmers, helping them to make business plans on the ground, cooperation is super. They understand how farmers live, they understand how weather changes quickly, they understand everything. The higher we go, the more problems we have. For some reason, I don't know. Somebody calls it bureaucracy. Maybe part of that could be bureaucracy. And you know, when we go very, very high, where the policies are made, as you were presenting, then in many cases during the last 5-7 years, we saw huge gaps in the policies, for example, Commission wants, and the reality which can bring those policies into life.
Would you give us an example immediately?
Like 40% of crops by 2030 should be eco. Not possible. Or let's say minus 30%. In one chapter, they were saying that 30% of chemical fertilizers should be down by the same 2030. In the other chapter, they said that also cow manure should go down significantly because it's one of the reasons of CO2. But the only way to change chemical with natural is to have more cows. So two chapters were actually fighting each other in the same book, as an example. So, you know.
Yeah, so let's take this problem as a problem. The higher we go, the more problems we have. How does that sound to you, Alistair?
Crikey. Yeah, I have to be very careful what I say because I don't want to get in trouble with those high up people. I'm going to bump into them again.
Welcome to my club.
Yeah. No, I completely accept that. I'm sure that is the reality, your reality, and it's many people in the sector's reality. And it's that distance from the field, and it's that you know, the pressure on those higher echelons to do so many things within their job. It's not excusable, really. You know, if you're in a position of power in a government, regional, national, European, and you're setting policies and you're in charge of affecting people's livelihoods and abilities to do the job, then you should know absolutely what you're doing. And I'm sure if we use the right techniques, we can engage those people and get them listening and involved in a better way. It's not easy.
Do we have any answers to what those techniques should be?
You know, techniques, if we talk about hard techniques, for example, it was a photo in your presentation, one of the last, it was a drone, right? It was a drone which we use quite a lot now in agro, in the fields. But during the last 7 years, there were any supports for drones, for example. They just came. They just came because of technical revolution, not revolution, but technical, let's say, no, let's call it revolution, small revolution. The same as mobile phones came, and nobody was subsidizing them, and nobody was telling them that every person should have mobile phone for some reason, but they came because technical revolution happened, and we started using them. So one of the things with the techniques, to my opinion, is that our problem is that sometimes we want to have good policy. All these policies are okay. So I think that everything is coming from good
intentions.
Yes, good intentions. We want all less pollution, whatever. But sometimes we want the things which are not invented yet. And then you are stuck. The things are not invented yet. There are no electric harvesters so far. And most probably there will be no in foreseeable future. There are no even biomethane tractors. Although attempts, we have companies even in Lithuania who are attempting, but there are no real good prototypes who would be working or commercial. We don't have, let's say, good solution how to make 40% or 30% or 40% of eco production not damaging soil. because it damages soil over the many years, you know, because you are left only with the technique of the 18th century. So yes.
So yes, we are coming back to the point about the lack of innovation and that we are missing innovation. In here you listed specific innovations that are missing, and let's hope that they will come one day. Mr. Beers, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, I want to comment. I'm less pessimistic on this, and that's related to how we look at the different types of innovation. Because what you see is it's usually small things like a good camera with a clever visual interpretation, which is built into a machine, and we don't consider it as being an innovation because it's just the new normal, I would say. So that's, and I think you called it to let's say, progressive innovation. It's incremental innovation, and we see a lot of, if you look at the tractor nowadays, how many new technology is built in the last decade, 5 years? So I'm not that pessimistic, but we have to be careful. It's not only the big things, but it's the adding up all the small things. I think, so I sort of disagree with the 6 that Christina gave us on innovation.
Mr. Morkunas?
I wanted to just add a little perspective on that as well. The one word I was missing from the first panel and here is education all around it. We are witnessing an increase in investments in agriculture. Technologies are advancing, but there's less and less investment in skilling, upskilling, reskilling, and training of farmers as well. I mean, the average age of farmers was 60, 65, and globally in European Union is a bit lower, but still quite significantly high. And we need a good policy. This is where we really need to work with governments, because we need good policy design in terms of retraining and upskilling farmers and those who are actually using that technology to make sure that is being used, that it's not only developed for development's sake. So I agree that technology is advancing, but what is a little bit decreasing is the training on how do we actually use it and apply it, which is quite surprising given that, you know, agriculture is the most stable market in the world, basically. We're always going to need more food, but how do we encourage more people to upskill and reskill?
Yeah, with the maybe it's a dangerous thing, but it's also a generation thing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm lagging. I'm an old guy, so I'm lagging behind. I'm not digital completely, but I see that where the innovation takes place is the farmers that are, let's say, 40 years, 30, 40 years. They adopt the technology and they great how they work with it. So I'm quite optimistic about this future. And I'm fully aware that, let's say, the 60-plus generation, they will never change again. So that's of course, and you can implement skill programs, but it's the son who has to take over, or the daughter.
Let us go back a little bit to the government involvement question in broader terms. Yekaterina, you represent Innovation Agency Lithuania, which is basically a non-profit agency under the Lithuanian Ministry of Economy and Innovation. What is its role exactly when we talk about agri-food? For example, you have mentioned one example, but if we talk about successful collaborations with businesses, we can ask you for examples, but then we hear another example of Konogrode, who basically say we don't need any government support, and it should be this way. So what does it depend on? You know, whether the company needs government support or not, and should it need government support?
Well, last time I've been on stage with Andrews, I nearly got fired. Well,
we left more money for others, so yeah.
Well, our role, our department, I am a head of life sciences, so we help our companies to develop their products from TRL 4 to TRL 8. The reason Andres doesn't need us anymore because he is in TRL 9, so he has a product and he needs to scale it up. And I think that's a great example, actually, how the government should support young businesses at the development stage when no one from private investors would fund them because it's too risky. That's where government comes, to de-risk it, to help, to fund, to consult, to mentor, and so on and so on. So that's what we do. So we help companies before, and it's really also our job to teach our companies to know when to stop asking for grants and seek for private funding. And that's a great, absolutely book example, how it should work. And I'm very proud of everything Kauno Grūdai are doing. And every time the Kauno Grūdai team thinks of something innovative and they want like a spin-off from a company or something, you know, if you think of some innovative idea, we would be more than happy to help, because it's going to be TRL4 idea, which we would support gladly.
Where does your innovation come from? How would you define it? What is your recipe?
So we were the first company in the group actually who has innovation department. So it's very and we have innovation CEO here, CEO, and all the development guys are sitting there. So all also here you see. So they're trying to get any ideas everywhere possible. It was even this thing for us, for example, because you know agro and food industry is not very, it's not very much conservative, but still it has some conservatism. And even this discussion we had almost for 1 year inside of our company: should we need this innovation function or not? Because it's a very difficult function. You know, when the innovation guy comes, everybody waits for the innovation. Give me innovation. Give him innovation. He has to deliver a few innovations a week. Yeah? Otherwise, what is he doing?
Yeah, but what were the guys doing before? Where did you get them?
We get him from the city, from the. No, he came from different companies, so we just we found him. But Donatas, we are talking about you, Donata. Yeah. So you know, but it is so in a sense what I wanted to say actually, in a sense we started to force ourselves to start thinking about innovation. Although in real life we didn't have big, let's say, demand for that. We didn't have big demand from employees. We had big discussions with the managers, and most probably majority of them were saying, no, there is no certain need of that. So we started forcing ourselves. And then, of course, after half a year, 1 year, small, you know, not very big, but they started to come. And now we have more, and this list of innovations which we are working on now is like 30 or 40 rows or points. And now, eventually, after 1 year of hard work, we have 2 quite big innovation projects which we started. I don't know how we will finish and we will be successful or not, but they are quite sizable, and could change. Actually, one of them could change even the, let's say, environment of business environment in agro in Lithuania. So
yes, but if we don't know about this project, it's hard for us to follow. Would you say a couple of words?
No, I cannot. Okay. I'm sorry, but yeah, but to finalize, so as a company, as all companies, I think, small or big, we have actually to force ourselves to dive into that. It's kind of investment. You invest without certain ROI. You don't know what is that. And for government, as Ekaterina says very, very rightly, and I agree fully, they have to spend some money, or kind of they have to burn some money, because without burning money, you will not succeed in getting those small innovative companies. For private company, it is absolutely impossible to consciously burn money. It's very difficult. Very, very difficult.
Mr. Beer's forcing innovation, is that a recipe for basically not eventually even needing collaborations with government? Would you agree each company just has to burn money to force innovation?
Well, in fact, looking at the role of the government in innovation, I think we should also be aware that a lot of innovations doesn't add value. So there are winners, but there are also losers. And I think it's important to have eye for the losers, because they are on the street, right? Protesting and stuff like that. So you have to manage that one way or another. And what we in our experience, we transferred a little bit to what we call responsible innovation. So also look at the downsides of innovation. So what we want to be in. So do we really want to have the innovation process like is going on in China? do we want to copy the US innovation without any consideration of losers? Yeah, so the people that are behind the small scale. Well, every time when we present one of our projects, it's always the question, how about the small scale farmers? Yeah? Are we inclusive enough? And that's what I like about the European spirit, I would say. So we have to be, you really have to have an eye for the let's say, the downsides of innovation and manage them. Not stop innovating, of course, but and I think that's an important issue which is now also addressed by the, if you look at the Horizon program, a lot of let's say work calls are addressing this concern.
Does anyone want to comment on the downsides of innovation topic?
I'm from innovation agency.
No one agrees with you. They were just politely nodding. But another pillar of government role and collaboration with government is data, opportunities in agricultural data spaces, data-driven decision-making for both public and private stakeholders. Is the government helpful, handy for you in this regard, for instance?
Data.
Data-wise, yes.
On general data, yes. So it's general data. It's always interesting. Otherwise, no. No. I don't remember any specific examples in our agro or food businesses where we had some advantage against competitors in other countries because of any data which was specifically provided for us. As it was in your presentation, precision farming, it's a data farmer. So you have to do yourself, and you have to decide accordingly on the data you receive. Maybe some data on climate and on this, now last week I was hearing one presentation actually, which looked to me very, very interesting, and it was kind of first time for me. I listened to one scientist, Lithuanian scientist, he was presenting the climate change of last 10 years in Lithuania very specifically. Which month has become more wet, which month has become more dry, which this and that, and from that you can draw a lot of conclusions actually for the farming. So such data is very welcome. I don't know, will it be, let's say, somehow supported by the state or not, but yeah, so
okay, but let's ask a more general comment, and I'm going to direct this to Mr. Starling then. Should we foster collaboration between policymakers, data specialists, and industry leaders to create more resilient agri-food systems?
Yes, because,
so
I'm an optimist. The data that can be shared between those different actors, we should be pushing, a company like yours should be nurtured, like a small flame until it becomes a much bigger flame, back to the fire starter analogy, because you're doing impressive things, and government should be helping in every way it can. And data scientists and the resilience of all of that should be cross-fertilized with, government is really well placed to talk about data because it has a lot of data. It's really big. Government just means a big animal. That's all government means. And in government relations, it just means don't be afraid of talking to a really big organization. So it's just a question of talking to government about the data that you need and not taking no for an answer, and they should be nurturing and supporting you, and this cross-fertilization across the X-Road in Estonia is a good example of that. And if it's not available in the format that you need it in your business or a small farm business, you have to shout and not accept it, and it's you've got the day job and you're extremely busy, but someone should be there to help you, someone like you, or you do it yourself, or some really innovative people, and not take no for an answer. If there's something missing that government could be doing, they've got to be starting to do it, otherwise none of this works.
Would you have a comment?
Absolutely. I think it's crucial that we work on data with farmers as well and with governments to create a return on investment for farmers, because farmers are not going to use data just because, I mean, as George said, I mean, the average farmer is not going to care about data, he's going to care about the crop. But one critical thing was what we really need to do is to distinguish between the different types of data as well. We have machinery data, soil, crop data, and etc. And there's so much information in each different type of data. And governments and government agencies here can help for farmers to distinguish and explain with policymaking how different data can be applicable. But most importantly, the role of government here is ensuring the farmer that the data they collect and use is secure. Because a lot of farmers are afraid to collect data, to use data because of privacy reasons, other spillover effects, and etc. So this is where the collaboration really comes into play, I would say.
Does Innovation Agency have a take on the security of data?
Well, I'm not really expert on agriculture, to be honest. It's more of a health data, but I can see some parallels here because it's even, well, you need even more security and safety with that. And I would love actually to reflect a little bit of what we discussed a little bit earlier. With those upper rooms issues, yeah. Let me be very unpopular and maybe defend some honor of those upper rooms. Could we solve cardiovascular surgeon problems today? No, we couldn't because we never operated, yeah? So that's the same. If we don't talk to government, if we don't provide feedback, we'll have to complain that government doesn't listen, they wouldn't respond, they wouldn't react, it's not enough support. But do we actually talk? Because we act as an implementing power of Ministry of Economy, so it's one of my job is to collect the feedback from the industry and bring it to the upper room. So when we ask companies to answer, yeah, to fill out survey which would take them 5 minutes, well, we get 10, 20 max% respond. And that's also industry's responsibility. So how are we going to, explain and expect any support from the government if we don't speak? And talking about data, well, I'm not sure about agriculture, as I mentioned, but with health data, we're quite advanced in Lithuania, actually. We have this secondary health data law, which since 2022, and there is an agency where you can apply for the data sets and get really, quality the data sets. So I assume, that's my guess, educated one, that it should be as advanced with agriculture data, but please correct me if I'm wrong.
I have seen your hand, but I have to let Andrus defend his position again.
No,
because you were not criticizing the government per se, you were just saying that, as far as I understood it, we just did our job and we did well without government's intervention. Would you want to comment to what Ekaterina just
I'm
said?
always for and, not or. So so it's not a fight. But in regards of data and in regards of communication, I think associations are fitting in this gap very well, and we are very active. Actually, you asked Ekaterina if we have. Yes, we are very active in Poultry Association, in Grain Growers Association, in all possible associations, and they are the main tool actually to communicate with the government, and I think we're doing as much as possible. And the same with the data. We are a member, for example, of European Milk Association. They have all the data about all the countries. You can get them, you can compare our milk farm with the milk farm in Hungary or in Sweden or whatever, where you want, and the same is with the crops, and then with the poultry, AVEC is the same, AVEC Association. So I think that we have channels where but you also, how to say, even in Lithuania we see what a huge difference is in the quality of let's say ministry work when the agro minister is a farmer. Huge difference, because he understands everything.
Of course.
Mr. Beers, you want to comment?
I want to elaborate a little bit on the data issue. Data is my business. So I think it's important to recognize that at the European level, some enormous programs are going on data. We are aware that because of the technology, because of the clouds, the Internet of Things, there are endless the number of data. And now we need to think on how to organize this a little bit better. So to have a proper governance structure around it so that people are not abusing it. But there are lots of things going on. And in my experience, it is, you also refer to this bringing all the data together at European level and making it available for farmers, for politicians, and everybody in between. And for me, the secret concept making it work is the benchmarking. Everybody is interested in benchmarking. You want to know where you are good and where you are, let's say, at our institute, we are collecting data from farmers, really detailed farmers about the farmer income, but also the income of the children. So it's very detailed. And we benchmark 20 farmers. We make a list order on, let's say, 30 indicators. So farmers can see, hey, I'm good at, let's say, my labor productivity, but I need to work a little bit better on my, let's say, use of pesticides, some things like that. And everybody in all companies they have they want to know where they can improve. And it's also at the government level. If we is the policy working? Why is it in Netherlands working better than in Germany? What is better, and where can Netherlands learn from other countries? So these are the things that you can do it at all levels, and that's, I think, and for us it was also important to see that when people are using, they have an incentive that the quality of the data is proper. Is okay, because otherwise it doesn't work. So it also affects the quality of the data. And I'm happy to say that we are now at the European level, some big programs are in preparation to really work on this, to involve the member states, to bring in the data sets that are available, and also to connect with the industry and the associations to really make it work.
We have some practical questions from the audience, and I very much appreciate that. And I think we would find time for 2 extra. So in case you have one, just type it in. In Europe, public and private funding is still very much locally, nationally organized. This makes it very hard for small agri-tech companies to scale up, especially in comparison to US or China. How do we overcome this?
I think we had some good examples where, and that's, I'm talking about European level, where it was important also to have the SMEs involved in the Horizon program. So what we did is we made large-scale projects with, we call it use cases, facilitated by open calls. So we generated a lot of companies that can come to the big projects. They have some free money, so to say, to facilitate the innovation at the SMEs. And what I see, it's now quite common in a lot of Horizon projects that they have open calls organized, especially for those who don't want to be a partner in such a complex project with complex administration procedures. But it's quite easy, and you can also use networks like this to find the companies that are interested in such programs.
Mr. Starling, do you have a recipe?
It's back to that idea that these things are big and scary. You know, they're big, scary animals. So Horizon is a word that terrifies hundreds of thousands of people on a daily basis. You know, it's, what is that? How do I get into that? How do I apply for some of that funding? And it's not just Horizon, it's any governmental program that can be very daunting for someone the first time. And I know as an entrepreneur myself in other sectors. But if you can find a mentor, as you say, if you can work with someone in an association who's done it before, it doesn't matter how small you are, you can interact with that big animal if you just get a bit of help. And it's just getting over the initial hurdle of being really scared about it. And AI can help you a little bit. Ask ChatGPT, you know, how to do it. But if you can just remember at the end of the day, these things have been set up to drip down funding into every corner of the land and look for the win-win and know that those people are there to help you, government's there to help you, and get over the fear, then get a mentor, get someone to help you. You'll be able to do it. Yeah.
Well, in Kenya, we actually have very supportive chain of national contact point established by research councils. So they even pre-read the application for Horizon. So it's not that scary anymore. You just have to go and ask and talk to these upper rooms. Yeah. So I think it's just, it's a matter of your own motivation also. And it's always easy to say, but it's too scary, it's not possible, and so on and so on. But well, we actually, as an innovation agency, we've been very successful with Horizon applications recently by joining a good consortium, by being very proactive, by really delivering also. Yep. So there is no secret sauce there. It's just hard work and motivation.
I think peer learning and network is also a very big part of it. A big part of our network at Business at OSD is we have 60 plus international, regional, sectoral business organization associations, many of which I believe Kono Grude are also part of. They represent international associations, but also within them they have national associations and companies of various sizes. This everything from International Seed Federation, Crop Life, International Food Drink Europe. Being within those associations for a lot of private sector companies, this is where it helps them to connect, to lear, and to connect on international stage and scale some of their issues.
Could the EU legislation framework, such as the Data Act, help stimulate innovation, or is it a barrier for competition?
It really, in my opinion, it really helps because it's part of what we ask for, better data governance. So it's and if you ask for data governance, you get involved in Data Acts, AI Acts, and a lot of other acts, so to say. But it's part of the program to have a decent organization, how you deal with data and how you can share data. And for instance, as a company, you can give your data to the government so they can make wise decisions without doing nasty things with the data. So that's I think for me it's let's say it's a condition for innovation.
If to stop in your question at the first part where you said the European regulation, I think we didn't touch here in this discussion one topic which I suppose could be one of the biggest in the coming, let's say, years or decades.
What would that be?
Which relates very much to regulation and food production. So as you know, even today, different countries they have different regulations on certain, let's say, inventions or scientific approaches. For example, we have GMO in North and South America. We don't have here, which is most probably okay. I'm not saying which is good or bad, but the plain fact. We have meat production also different in Europe and the USA. And it looks like that this European way of innovations to make the yields better, or yields of crops or yields of milk, whatever, they are coming to some kind of limit. Because during the last 50 years, you perfectly know this seed, natural hybrid seed business was going very well, and the yields were going up every year. But now they are stopping somewhere, and the same with the milk. And the demand will be even bigger in the future. So I think the governments and the European regulators will face not very far this moment when there will be a dilemma what to do. Do we have to open this Pandora, let's say, box and to try to start doing the same as other countries doing, or not? Because other countries will continue to do that. The same thing is coming with the CRISP, yes, CRISP, which is also coming into agro. And also we still don't know if it's okay or not, and does it suit to Europe or not, to our mentality. And so this big thing, which is very much related to regulation, I think will have huge impact on food production in Europe.
That is a very interesting insight. I can see that you want to say something about it.
Well, the limits of the production. 20 years ago, we had the same statement, and look what. So we don't know where the limits are, to be honest. But new technology is still in progress, and I'm not sure if we are at the limits yet. Okay, we'll see.
Does the data, I lost the question, but I think that will have to go back to you, Mr. Beers, and we are kind of heading towards the end. Do you think data-related projects are hardly understood by smaller farmers?
What we see, like I said, always when you are innovating, how about the small-scale farmers? What we see is that when things becoming more complex, so the interpretation of data, we see the emergence of new services. So it's not only extension that is helping, but it's also the providers of the technology, which don't only give the technology, but also a service related to that. So we get new service providers, and we also see some new, let's say, new business models, I would say, on technology. It's not always that farmer has to buy things, but they can do it together in a sort of cooperative, or they can just use the services per hour or per hectare or per cow. So there's a lot of things in the business development going on there.
This is the last one from the audience, but I think it's quite a good one. What are you expecting from the new political cycle in Lithuania or Europe? Let's think about this and merge this with a final question for me, which will be practical insights from you, whether you're agri-food business or government agency, on navigating government partnerships. So this is just to go back to our pure topic. You have given some specific steps to follow. Now it's upon us to add something to these points. And at the same time, if you want to say something about your expectations for the new commission, new Lithuanian government, you're most welcome to do that. Anyone?
Just I don't know a lot about Lithuania. I'm sorry, I should know more. But from a European and UK perspective and the new policy-making cycles, I mean, there's a huge amount of pressure on budgets, so that's an obvious elephant in the room. So just like with the legislative changes with the new government in the United Kingdom, are kind of crushing farmers' hopes right now for being able to hand on a farm to their children. But this will be sorted out, because what I think we should demand of our policymakers and we should expect of them is for them to be meeting us at the table and talking and walking the fields with us, and they will do that. If you ask them, they will do that. And in my experience in the National Trust, whether we were dealing with a basic topic, which was, can we have a zip wire for people from out of this area to come and enjoy themselves sliding down this zip wire across these farmscapes? Is that a good thing or is that a terrible thing? The farmers we engaged with knew how to debate that. And then we took it up a level. We're talking about rewilding a whole valley with wolves and buffalo, as I say. Can we do that? What are the pros and cons? The farmers and the government interlocutors, they could talk on that. They could talk about the data, they could talk about the animals, they could talk about the 50-year end result. They knew their stuff. And then I was dealing with a nuclear repository. Can we build this huge nuclear repository for nuclear fuel underneath the farmland in this 100 square mile area? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? And the farmers and the unions and the governmental organizations and the forestry commission people I was debating that with, they knew their stuff. They all sat around and they talked about these things, and we should just expect policymakers, whatever we're talking about, whether it's wolves or nuclear waste, to be able to engage with us and sit down at the same table. And they will. Both sides will come together if you use the right language and the right type of invitation.
Thank you. Ekaterina, any practical insights in terms of partnerships with the government?
Absolutely. Well, my advice, I would say, would be do not align your business strategy with the government strategy. Because, you know, political cycles changes every 4 years. It's really short-term strategy if you do. So don't try to please the government. Think how you please your end user, because they're the ones who are going to pay for your product or your software or whatever you're going to produce. So that's my main advice.
Thank you. Mr. Beers.
To be very concrete, there's a new instrument at the EU level that's called partnership. And the idea of that is that the European Commission comes out of its ivory tower and wants to cooperate with the national governments. I'm working on the partnership for the agriculture of data, so the digital innovation. And what we are now currently doing is collecting the programs from the different member states, put them in one box, see that a lot of countries are doing the same, so similar projects in 5 countries. So we have to work together and stand upon each other's shoulders, and then complement it with the EU subsidy. So that's the idea of this partnership arrangement that is going on. It's very concrete. And in my opinion, what we saw is that already a couple of governments said, okay, if you are sitting together, it's better that you do the programming of our RNI instead of doing it ourselves. So it's more a collective thing that is now going on in this concept of the partnership, which is very concrete.
I hope for more and continued support for the OECD's effort in making the environment less fast and furious. And that's the title of the OECD report they released last year, focusing on environmental impact monitoring mechanisms. The OECD describes the situation as there are increasingly difficult and complex and different varieties of environmental impact monitoring mechanisms, and the trend is fast and it's furious in terms of complexity, which creates fragmented landscapes for farmers. So I hope that there's continuity in these efforts, because the European Commission, as well as not only Lithuania's, but each national government plays a very big role in OECD debates, particularly in agriculture. So hope for continuity here.
Thanks.
I would wish for both Lithuanian and European governments to be more rational, much more down to earth, how to say, and to think much more about competitiveness. Because European Union is starting to lose entire sectors because of the lack of competitors. You see what's happening with electric cars and so on, a huge disaster. So let's not lose the food competitiveness, which Europe is number one in the world. So let's think about that, and I wish very much that we have to be competitive also.
But if you were the, I don't know, commissioner of AgriFood, what would your first step be for Europe to not lose competitiveness?
To hire 10 farmers who speak English and bring them to Brussels to work.
Yeah, that's simple, but I mean.
No, it's not simple. It's not simple, but
it's 10. That's a lot.
Yeah, but it means that more rational, that policies cannot be created in the cabinets, in the room somewhere far away from everything. Where people, not to insult anybody, but mainly understand about agro while reading newspapers. It cannot be like that. You have to be competitive on the ground.
On that note, I think we'll stop here. We'll thank all of the speakers. Before you start clapping, I will just have to say that we will now break finally for coffee. Come back here in 15 minutes, but not just to this room, but to room B and C, I think they are called. So there will be 3 different venues where you can go. But before you do that, let's applaud the wonderful panelists. Good.